See it? You can never tell. Yep. All right. Let's see. Let's see. I think so. Give me a thumbs up if the audio is fine, because last time it was double. It was like echoey. Echo-y. Driverless delivery. Woman gives birth in San Francisco Waymo. I feel like what do you name the kid? You know, you name it some like something. I don't. Yeah, I think you got to name it something. San Francisco. You know, city is good. City is good. Hold on. Let's come here. Twitch.tv / Shevastranova. There we go. All right. Hazel, come here. Plus Neymar, Waymar. Thoughts on Web3 and blockchain infrastructure? I have a lot of thoughts on blockchain infrastructure. We'll talk to it. Can you give some tips for a new NPM package ADR flow? All right. The agenda for today it's pretty fluid. I have a couple things I want to go over. And then we'll just see what community. I'm running in the marina like 5 days a week actually. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. I'm down there usually in the mornings. I think I've met some people. I definitely have like moments where I'm running and walked into my run so I don't see it. Are you Albanian? Yes. So we're trying to stream this on YouTube. I'm very curious to see how the quality is because my concern last time I tried to do this was that frames were dropping. Could have been like a weird internet situation. I think I did at least. I have the chat, I think, working, or it's supposed to be, but I don't think it's going to. I don't know. Come run an NYC. I really want to do. I was actually telling my wife last night. I was like, I really want to do the NYC marathon or like one of these. You know, one of the big ones. Like Valencia was this past weekend. I would love to do Chicago or New York. Boston is the goal. That the plan is like mid-year next year to hopefully qualify for Boston. But in the meantime, maybe I'll try to see if I can get on like a charity team. That'd be really fun. Open source, funny. Like I've seen this kid. It's pretty crazy. Of prediction, I think they raised $50 million, which is only 5%. That is pretty insane. Valuation. Another source said the startup is growing quickly, but it's ARR. And I was like, you know, if you get these, they, at least based on what they say, or an election or how consumers are going to react to some particular product, like that's their whole thing. Can you take that and then use that to like make money on? I was kidding a little bit in the sense that like, I just thought it's human behavior, and on the other side actually happens. I don't know, but and if you look at these guys, I guess these guys are all really young. They're like 17 or 18, which is pretty crazy. It's impressive, right? Without a doubt. I mean, if you're like 17, 18 years old, raising at $1 billion, like that's, you did something right, you know, in your life at some point. And just asks to buy you out. Sense like we got introduced from poker. Like he knew that they were somebody who who's in this space, and then he's like, why don't I introduce you guys? And so we started chatting, and then it happened. It all happened pretty fast, honestly. It was like 2 weeks, pretty much. They call it 3 weeks, and then there was an on-site visit. We spent like 8 hours with their team, and then it happened. I think okay. So do we see the multi-chat? Do we see it in the top right hand corner? I think it's only Twitch that's coming in. I wonder why. I wonder. I don't think the TikTok one can come in. I think that's probably it. But I think in the top right corner you should be able to see it. I might need like a better background for it. It's a little hard to see. Yeah, I only see Twitch messages. Yeah, I'll have to keep working on it. I'll have to figure out, because like this, I was using this tool, this Social Stream Ninja, and you're supposed to be able to, yeah, like you're supposed to be able to see both, because you log in with both, but for some reason it's not pulling in the TikTok ones. So that'll be next time. You know, we'll figure it out. At least we have something working, which worked. Nothing worked last time. Yeah, I mean, our acquisition process was pretty straightforward, honestly. Like, it was 3 weeks. We had an on-site visit. They made an offer. We reviewed it. We said yes, and that was it. We did paperwork. Honestly, the paperwork was like the most annoying part because it's all lawyer stuff. You know, like you're just talking to lawyers the entire time. It's like our lawyers and their lawyers, and you're kind of just like overseeing, and you're having to put together a bunch of documents, and it's a lot of that. Can you give me some tips on my open source npm project? Okay, we got this couple. Let's check out. I said I was going to do this last time. We're going to take some community suggestions, and we'll look at some stuff, and we'll give some feedback. Right. I'll do my best to be helpful. Okay, drop the npm package link in the chat, and we'll take a look at it. In the meantime, what advice do you have for a 9-to-5 software engineer that wants to start working on a startup? It's a good question. I think if you want to start working on a startup, one of the best ways I think to do it is actually to work at a startup. I don't know if you've ever worked at one before, but I always find that like if you're going from working at a big company to like trying to start your own startup, it's really hard to do that. I'm gonna make this a little smaller. There we go. It's really hard to do that because it's just totally different. Like you just don't know the pace. You don't know like the shortcuts, the things that you can do. I think the best way to do it initially is to like actually just go work at a startup. But if you're already doing that, then I think people overcomplicate this. Like I think you have to build a product and then you have to go find users for it. You know, I think there's so much like startup advice out there, and there's so many people that talk about it and all these different ways, and startups get started in all different ways. But at the end of the day, like if you just build the product and go get people to use it, then you've already built a startup, right? That's what a startup is. That's what any business is. Everything else just fills in. Like, you know, there's the analogy that some like organizational scientists talk about. I think this is also just generally life advice, which is like rocks and sand. Like imagine you have a jar. Your jar is like your attention or your life. Like you can only put so many big rocks in there before you can't fit any more big rocks. But you can pour sand around that stuff. And the analogy is like, you know, the big rocks are like the most important things, right? And the sand is kind of everything else that just fills in the gaps. To me, like that in a startup world, like build a product, get people using it. Those are the rocks. Everything else is just kind of sand that fills in around that. So I think that's the best way to start. Oh, we'll definitely talk about IBM acquiring Confluent. That's on the list. We had a couple other things that we'll talk about. Would you ever join an early stage startup again, like seed or Series A? I don't know. Like I think my situation is probably a little different than most in that sense, but like I would if it was the right one. I was talking actually. I had a VC reach out to me like maybe 2 weeks ago. A fairly well known like brand name VC, and it was their like head of talent, and she was pretty much like hey, we're like always looking to build our network with like people in product, like founders, all that stuff. What are you looking for? Hazel, get down. What are you looking for in a startup if you're going to join one? And I was, told her, I was like, I want it to be something that's going to be really challenging, and working with like an absolute top team, like the best talent that the money can find. Um, and so like I wouldn't do one unless it was exactly that, which I know is a little vague, but like I don't know. It has to just like be, it has to just fit, I think, with like what I would want to do. But I think if you've never worked at a startup, I think you should do it, just to at least get the experience. And I think you should probably do like a Series A or Series B. Seed stage is honestly like really hard. It's really really hard. Mainly because like there's so much thrashing that happens. Like unless you have a company that knows exactly what it's gonna do, which like very few at the seed stage do. Um, I think it's a hard experience to go through if it's your first time ever working at a startup. I'm just watching my cat totally fuck up this paper roll right now. Just mauling it. Like half of it is just like completely mauled. Anyways. Um yeah, I guess what's my like punchline? I guess I would do it, but it would just have to really, really be the right one. Okay. Let's talk about Google's new glasses. Did you guys see this? Google X Real. Google X Real. So I think they announced this today. So here's like the announcement. I think this was, yep. So this was yesterday, December 8th, 2025. So at I/O, they announced these glasses. Essentially, I think it was a response to, um, who was it? OpenAI, kind of. Those were the rumors. Um, but then it was Apple, right, with the Vision Pro. But I guess now they're actually starting to talk a little bit more about it because they just gave us a really high level like overview. I mean, yeah, we had Google Glass, but like that's kind of it. Okay, so this says wired XR glasses. Android XR will support wired XR glasses that offer a unique blend of 70-degree field of view, optical see-through technology. I think the problem is like, okay, so if you look at these, like these things are huge. Look at them, right? Like the form factor still isn't there. Like I think that's like where I get stuck with a lot of these is like I know it takes time, but I don't know, man. Like I can't see myself just wearing these giant glasses. I was actually getting some beers last night with a friend of mine, and he has a pair of X Reals. Obviously not these ones, but he has the X Real glasses, and he loves them. He's like, oh, I wear them on a flight, and he's like, I just work on the flight, and it's like I have these like massive monitors around me. Like I think there's like some utility there, but they're just too bulky. Like they're just too big. Like until you get like this, just like this style, and I don't know if that's ever gonna happen, but I think it will. But like they need to be light. They can't be these like goofy like layered glasses protruding like an inch out from your face. But with that being said, like I like that somebody's working on it, especially somebody like Google, and at least hopefully pushing things forward. But I don't know. I can't. But see, this is interesting because hers look like these ones look much better, right? Maybe this is what they meant actually. Maybe the wired ones are different. Like if you see these ones, these actually look pretty legit. I want to see if I can get. Okay, yeah, hold on. Can we get a good view of the AI glasses? Google AI glasses. Google to launch first of its AI glasses in 2026. Show me the picture. That's what I want to see. The glasses will be built on top of Android XR, Google's operating system for its headsets. I just want to see what they look like. You know, I want to see a close-up. Okay, maybe this is better. There we go. Which one? Maybe this one. Like, if that's what the glasses look like, those look pretty legit. Like, they look actually pretty like lean, pretty tight. They don't look super bulky. I mean, what's the rate limiting factor here, right? Like, what is the thing that stops them from developing something like, you know, like this form factor, right? Like something like pretty small. I mean, this looks pretty good, right? If you're being honest, like I think if this is what they end up launching, that would be pretty cool. 2 innovative screen-free assistants, in-lens display models. Yeah. I don't know. You know, I'm just like, I like the idea. I'm always a little nervous that they're going to be just way too bulky and big. Like, is this it? When was this? When did this get launched? Oh, this was in May. Let's see. Nah, I don't think brain cancer has anything to do with it. I don't see these glasses giving you cancer. Like, they wouldn't get approved if they did. There's like certain frequency limits you have to stay within. Otherwise, it actually starts heating up your brain tissue, which is kind of wild. I just feel like they haven't really released too many pictures, you know? Like a better video of it. I guess we'll see. I don't know. I don't have any more information on it, unfortunately. I wish we had more. But they don't really have much. Other than hopefully they look pretty cool. Hopefully they're slim. They're not too heavy. And they're actually like usable. I did hear though, so a friend of mine went to go get the Meta Ray-Bans. Like the new ones. Meta Ray-Ban glasses. These are the new ones, right? I think. Which ones are the new ones? Or is it these AI glasses? Yeah, these ones. A friend of mine went to go get them, and I guess you can't order them online, which I thought was kind of shitty. Like, that's kind of a crazy experience. Like, he had to, yeah, you have to schedule a demo. So, like, he had to schedule a demo at a Best Buy to go and try these on. A demo is required to buy a Meta Ray-Ban display. Like that, you know, if you think about it just from a signal perspective, like that's a bad signal. At least to me, that would be a bad signal, right? It's like Apple would never do that. Apple would never make you go get a demo in store from them before you could buy it. Like they give you the option, right? You can always go into the store and do that if you want, but they would never force you to do that. And that to me, like that to me says a lot about just like the confidence of the product and of the team behind it. Like if you thought that there was some reason, if you thought that it was a good product that stood on its own, it should just be able to be bought online. I suspect Palmer Luckey will solve this. I mean, I don't know. Like, he did release, I guess, a version of AR, right? Did you guys see this? Like the Army military helmet that they did with Anduril, like Anduril Army military helmet. This thing looks fucking wild. Yeah, Eagle Eye. That's what it's called. Okay, dude, too many ads. Like, look at this thing. It looks kind of sick, right? Because if you compare this to the other like big kind of tactical goggles they have today, those are actually quite heavy. But the fact that this is integrated into the helmet is pretty cool. When this first came out, I actually tweeted at Palmer Luckey and I was like, because a big part of this is is that it's all real time. Like you get in data from drones, from satellites, and then also all the helmets are all kind of like synced on the same network. So a big part of Anduril, of what they talk about, is like their OS called Lattice. Anduril Lattice OS. Let's see if we can get a good picture. There's a specific image that I'm looking for that they use to describe Lattice. I wish I could find it. But the idea is that like you have all of these sensors. For example, they use this like in the border, right? Like they have all these sensors and then they all combine in real time into one connected grid. And so they were saying that like they're going to do the same thing for these helmets, right? So you can imagine a team. They have, let me see if I can find, like, in the announcement, I think they shared an image of what it would look like. Anduril Eagle Eye helmet. Yeah, like this thing. Like, that's fucking gnarly. Show me. There we go. Like, look at this, right? If you see it up close, like, this is Call of Duty shit, right? Like, it's actually showing you the person behind, or as they're going behind this like shipping container. And the idea is that like if you have somebody there, you have satellites beaming that data back down to you, it can track where enemies or other people are. So on this side, it's like these are your teammates, right? You see they're highlighted in blue. Whereas like this is an enemy. And you have like a HUD. You have a literal HUD, right? On the left-hand side, you have this map. And on the right-hand side, you can see the alternate view that a satellite, like an infrared satellite, would see, where you have this, like, I guess, enemy here, and then you have your two guys here. That's kind of fucking wild. Like, that to me is pretty insane. Like, but it makes sense, right? Like, that's why you'd want to build something like that for the military. But, like, it's crazy to me that that all resolves in real time. Like, that's what I want to know. Like, there has to be some lag, right? Like, there's no way you can resolve everybody's movements, satellite data, drone data, all into one view. But they're claiming that they can. He recently did a talk and had some kind of VC eyewear on. 1 millisecond lag. Is that true? If that's true, that's pretty crazy. Right? Like, look at that. That's nuts. You know what this reminds me of? Like cyber girls when they wear those like fucking headphones with like the kitty ears. That's like what this reminds me of. Because he is a big cosplay guy. Like headphones with kitty ears. Like, find the difference, you know? Like, those are the same thing. That's what it looks like. So are these like, I wonder if these are like air vents up here? Or are these like sound? I don't know. Crazy. Crazy. But like, that's cool. Like, that's cool shit. I don't know. I like it. I think it's pretty cool. It's kind of badass. All right. Should we move on to fun enterprise software, IBM and Confluent? That sounds interesting. IBM and Confluent. We all know IBM, right? I think IBM's pretty... I used to work at IBM back in the day. What did I work at IBM? 2015 to 2018. I was at IBM. The thing with IBM, man, it's like they just can't get out of their own way. You know what I mean? Like, it's a storied company, right? Fun fact, so the guy who started IBM, Thomas Watson, I think, if I remember correctly, right? Thomas Watson, yeah. So this guy who founded IBM used to sell cash registers. He was a sales guy at NCR, National Cash Register. National Cash Register Company, NCR, was founded in 1884. This was the first cash register that could keep track of change and of like transactions. And so Thomas Watson was a sales guy there. Oh. Watson was a sales guy. Yep. Longtime leader of IBM, began his career in sales at NCR until 1913. And then he left to go start IBM. Fun fact. Anyways, when I was at IBM, what was her name? Ginny Rometty was the CEO. And she had this, I mean, like, I don't know. I wasn't the biggest fan of her. She just gave me, like, I liked it because she was an engineer, but she gave me very much, like, management consultant kind of, like, financial engineering vibes versus, like, product innovation vibes. You know what I mean? And then they ended up hiring the next guy. She was there for like, I think 8 or 9 years. IBM, this guy, Arvind. He's also like a business guy. You know what I mean? And I think this is the problem with IBM. Like, and to his credit, he did get Red Hat, which, like, I don't know, is kind of interesting, I guess. Yeah, Arvind. The thing with Red Hat, though, is like, Red Hat made most of its money from services contracts. I mean, that's what they did, right? They were like a Linux like service provider, and then they had a bunch of. I mean, they had some other tools too. They actually had a pretty interesting container orchestration tool called Open. Oh man, it's escaping me right now. Hold on, Red Hat OpenShift. That's what it was. Yeah, enterprise Kubernetes platform. And this is actually, I think, doing reasonably well within the big companies. But it made sense because Red Hat is an enterprise company, right? Like, it's big companies like IBM and others, right? These like banks, right? JP Morgan, like they pay Red Hat a lot of money for like Linux consulting, for services to manage, their on-prem deployments, their open source deployments. And then he bought it for like 30 bill. And it fit because IBM is also a big enterprise company as well. And then they bought HashiCorp, which I thought was really interesting. That kind of came out of nowhere for me. Because HashiCorp is very much a dev tool, right? They started to go more enterprise. Crazy thing, HashiCorp is, when they went public with, I think, less than 100 million in ARR. I think they were doing I think it was 93, if I remember correctly. And out of that 93, something like 80 million of that was services, like cloud services revenue, from like Terraform and their others, their other products. But they were trying really hard to move people towards Terraform Cloud, towards Vault Cloud. I imagine they've done better at that, right? Like, I wonder if HashiCorp revenue source breakdown. I wonder if Google will show it to us, because I'm curious to see how they've been doing. Nearly 98% of HashiCorp's revenue subscription based. See, the thing is, you can make services based contracts subscription based. You can make it look like ARR, right? Because you just say, hey, pay us whatever, $5,000 a month every month for a year on a 3-year contract. All of a sudden you have subscription based revenue, but it's not really subscription based revenue because it's not SaaS revenue, right? It's really just services revenue that's delivered by people. So you have 40% margins, but you make it look like subscription based so that you get a higher multiple in the open market. I wonder. I mean, good for them though. They're doing like 650 million. I mean, they've grown 6x, call it, in the last 6 years. HashiCorp, 10, maybe? Last 10K. All right, let's look. Mainframe of Kubernetes. Yeah, no, Red Hat is a good product. It's a genuinely good product. Okay, we can look at their annual report. Yeah. It's a lot of glazing with this whole like let's create shit. Like, come on. Give me revenue breakdowns. Okay, here we go. Oh, they don't. Maybe they'll break it down later. 2024 revenue was 27. I'm assuming this is billion, so this is in millions. So this is 27 billion. Picture looked better than it probably went down. That's interesting. We're getting to it. I find that fascinating because you would expect that they would be making the shift into AI consulting, right? Because that's what IBM has. Like IBM, when I was there, has these massive contracts with all of the, essentially all the big companies, right? All the enterprise companies. And they're bringing a team of consultants and they would say, okay, hey, we're going to sign a 5-year, $100 million contract. We're going to have our consultants build you all of your data layer. That's what we did. We built like a bunch of data layer stuff. And then we're going to have teams to manage it for you, like outsourced teams. Like a lot of the companies I used to go work at, they literally had IBM employees sitting at desks effectively as full-time employees. So I would have expected that they'd be making a venture into like the AI consulting like Accenture did. Like, I don't know if you guys saw this when Accenture announced, I think it was Accenture, right? AI consulting revenue. It's got $1 billion in AI consulting revenue. Yeah, look at this. Accenture's AI consulting revenue saw, in 2025, with generative and agentic AI revenue tripling to almost $3 billion. And I want to know, like, what is IBM doing on that, right? That's what I would want. With Watson. I have thoughts on Watson. Mainly because all right, so when I was there in 2015, Watson was kind of just really starting to come out, right? Like, I think they announced Watson in 2013. When did IBM announce? It still wasn't really like, and they just like totally, and I think that is just like, that is big and they're slow in the org and they need the killers in the org. So what else do we got? Okay, I want to see, do they, $35 in cash? This is nothing. How HashiCorp's changed over the years. IBM and Confluent. Why does IBM had some pretty good. So why does IBM want Confluent lately? And to be fair, a good friend of mine is towards these streaming, all these agents, right? And they need to communicate with REST requests. Kafka does very well, and so I think their play here is like, Confluent is leading the way with Kafka. They're leading the way with the streaming between agents, kind of like infrastructure or interface. IBM obviously wants to get in that. I think also given the fact that somebody mentioned in the chat, like Kafka is open source. IBM is, at least they're trying to be heavy. Confluent also does, I think actually does like reasonably. And top line, there's something substantial. Companies that created open source software, right? Like, to me, Confluent, I think in some ways is a little bit further at the middleware layer. Confluent, and continue to push on-prem. Then I guess the infrastructure layer up at least. Ventures in future. Stanford, it's going to carry you. So I don't know. That's my take. I think normally when these kind of acquisitions happen, Confluent. You have a target and you have an acquirer, right? Like that's in M&A terms. You have a target, which is the company that is being acquired, and then you have the acquirer, which is the company that's trying to do the acquisition. Normally speaking, the target revenue bumps by like 30%. I'm sorry, stock price bumps by 30%. That's normally the premium in the market to take the company private. And then the acquirer, typically their stock actually goes down. And I wonder if we'll see that. I would imagine so. Usually it dips just a little bit. Yeah, it dipped just a little bit. Pretty normal. If anything, no, it didn't go up. Yeah, it went down a little bit. Confluent stock soars 29%. I said 30. 29 was the actual. That makes sense. I wonder what he said. Okay, so this is what Arvind enterprise functions. Nobody can live with. Yeah, I mean, I guess like to be the kind of revenue off of consulting, off of services, continuing to make a bet on that market, which is IBM ever be of the IBM cloud. I don't know anybody who uses it. Google, like an AWS or GCP, or would they be more of money wherever they can? I don't know. But I was pretty surprised about the Confluent news. That was definitely surprising. And also the Hashi news too. That was also pretty surprising. They're going to continue to sell licenses, subscriptions, and packaging up open source software. Yeah, that makes sense. I don't disagree. Entrepreneurial in that sense, but I guess if they found what works for them, it's a very mature business model, not something a startup would do. Yeah, true. True. Yeah. The other thing I had on my Agentic Foundation. You guys see this? That was announced today. Advanced open source agentic AI with the Hazel from a bunch of other companies. What is agents projects? So it's a README. Like I feel like that's not that. We've contributed core building blocks, including the Agents SDK, Apps SDK, and the Agentic Commerce Protocol, as well as open source efforts like GPT OSS and the Codex CLI. Is the Codex CLI actually open source? Is that right? I didn't think it was. Codex CLI GitHub? Or am I just... I guess it is. That's cool. I didn't know that. I didn't know that it was open source. That's right, because they did rewrite it in Rust. That's pretty cool. And then MCP. A README should be a standard. Yeah, I agree with. That's why I'm like, I don't understand. Like, that's like their thing. Claude is not open source. That's right. Claude is not open. Their Rust crate has. Should we check? Or did they build it? Let me see. Where's the cargo? Cargo. I think. Is it custom? I mean, they're definitely using it somewhere, right? They have Ratatouille imported. I wonder where, though. Ratatouille. I mean, Codex TUI source lib.rs in the model file. Run Ratatouille app. Like, that to me sounds like they're using it. Source style.rs. Interesting. Same with MCP. That's going to be the thing. One, I struggle to see how open standard for its entire product on MCP. I desperately trying to stay relevant. From an open source perspective, I agree with the source though. Like, I don't know. They're not an open source company. Like, they just don't do that. Of what agents do, like, to me is just not. That's dumb. Like, the Linux Foundation, this is the same foundation. I will show you. CNCF. This is the same foundation that has the CNCF, right? CNCF has projects like Kubernetes. Like, we're talking actual real open source software that is used across the world, right? By the biggest companies you've ever heard of, by everybody. You have Kubernetes, you have Istio, you have Cilium, you have eBPF, you have it's fucking so many of these projects. Nanos, you have Prometheus, you have Grafana, you have FluentD, you have gRPC. Like, these are real open source projects. And it's honestly kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of agents.md file. But like, it's really actually hard to get into production use cases. And I get, like, that's annoying. The Linux Foundation, open source at its heart, up about it. That's why. Tool call. It up was like actually just reverting back to using tool calls, because I just like, for most apps, unless you're like a Composio, right? Unless you're one of these types of companies, which like your business is MCP, this thing, right? Like, unless you want 200 different connections to every other product out there, tool calls, at least in my opinion, were way more accurate and successful, generally speaking, than using an MCP server. They changed their website. I don't know. I guess, I mean, what, like, do we keep an eye on this and see where it goes? I guess. But I'm kind of bummed about it in terms of what they released. Heard about the new Google models. Google, the A2A. It just never got it. And it was competitors, which could then each talk to somebody use it. It just kind of died, which is kind of sad. Did we look at this? Model. No, not Mona either. Hold on. I took a note of it. That's what it was. Mirrors, not minus. Mirrors. Hi Fee. Where's Hazel? Wreaking havoc on my apartment. Okay, for agent to agent. I don't know anybody who's using it. Like, I would love to hear about somebody using it in production, but I don't know if anybody is. So Google, when I'm streaming, she has to go in both of us. They're kind of just go through this for a second. Pretty cool. So the transform arc, if we do, let me know. We can do a quick review. Back at earlier inputs to prioritize limits the ability to scale transform. That reduced this from a quadratic. That was kind of the issue that happened. Like flash attention was part of it. Sparse attention was the other thing. I think there's maybe one more. In two new papers, current neural nets, with the theoretical framework for generalizing these approaches, which is effectively the object testation. The ability of an AI model is running and without dedicated. So I think in this paper they actually talk about a second. I read through this a couple days ago as metric, which is the modelizing. So something that like doesn't piece of information more strong. That's surprising. That's their surprise metric. Like imagine reading a book and you get to a part that all of a sudden is like, wow, I wasn't expecting that. Right, some twist. You're more likely to remember that twist. And so if I remember correctly, that was the sort of mental model they were going with this. So Titan's learning new context on the fly. An effective learning system requires distinct yet interconnected memory modules, mirroring the brain's short and long-term memory. So this also isn't anything new. I think there's a lot of companies who are working on this. They call it like the hierarchical memory model, right? Hierarchical memory organization. Model LLMs. Yep. So this one came out a little while ago. I remember reading this. Hierarchical memory for high efficiency long-term reasoning, which makes sense. That's how, I guess humans think. I'm not a neuroscientist. So while attention mechanisms excel for precise short-term memory, Titan introduces a novel neural long-term memory module that, unlike the fixed-size vector or matrix memory in traditional recurrent neural networks, acts as a deep neural network, specifically a multi-layer perceptron. We're going to break out the Excalidraw here in a minute. We're going to go through multi-layer perceptrons. Excalidraw, do we have it? Boom. I guess a multi-layer perceptron should probably have one more, but this is technically a multi-layer perceptron, right? We got our input layer, we got our hidden layer, and then we got our output layer. This is it. This is the multi-layer perceptron in its most basic form, right? It's just a whole lot of matrix multiplication with an activation function and a bias in these hidden layers. This memory module provides significantly higher expressive power, allowing the model to summarize large volumes of information without losing important context. The model isn't simply taking notes, it's understanding and synthesizing the entire story. I want to take one quick caveat to the question, right? This is the question that everybody talks about. There was a big discussion on Twitter about it recently. And the question was, if all an LLM does, right? Like, this is the question. If all an LLM does is reorganize the words that it has available to it based on its, really the pre-training data, right? Because that's really when it learns this vocab, these words. Is it able to come up with new thoughts and new ideas? That's the question, right? If you have a bank of words and all you can do is reorganize them into certain ways, are you capable of reasoning? That was the question that was asked on Twitter that people are arguing back and forth. A little bit of a philosophical argument. The philosophy of science, if you're into that sort of thing. Now, at least from my perspective, like intuitively, that's what we do, right? That's at least what I would think the humans do. Because at the end of the day, like language is how we express our ideas. So an idea in your head that you can't express is not really an idea at all until you're able to express it to somebody else. And so it makes you think that it's like, if vocab and language is how you project an idea into the world, is an LLM actually reasoning, or is it not? Not capable of true reasoning, but can discover new ideas. But how do you get to new ideas without reasoning, right? And maybe qualify the word true. That's what I want to know. LLM inference is simply processing the probability of the next word it must generate. I mean, like a forward pass and it's generating a new token, right? That is what it's doing. But is that not reasoning? Or can reasoning not come out of that? But is it really only reorganizing? New ideas means stemming from existing, but not previously tried or connected the dots before. So there was, that's an interesting comment, right? New ideas meaning stemming from existing, but not previously tried or connected the dots before. So this reminds me of, I think it was last week, right? The Erdos problem that was solved, Erdos 124, by Harmonic, Erdos 124, Harmonic. So this was a problem, right, that I'm not a mathematician by any means, but this was the problem that Harmonic, which is an AI model, Aristotle, which is an AI model from a company called Harmonic, founded by Vlad Tenev, who's the founder of Robinhood, solved this problem, right? In lean formalization, the math god Terence Tao was like, looks good to me for the most part, right? And a human hadn't come up with this. A human hadn't come up with this, right? So if a model is able to connect the dots where a human hadn't yet come up with it, did it reason, right? Another example of this, and a little bit relevant, was the minimum number of steps you need to calculate to do matrix multiplication. There's a guy, I think in the 80s, who came up with this. What was his name? Guy who came up with minimal number of steps to do. What was his name? This is the individual who revolutionized matrix multiplication by developing an algorithm that uses a non-standard lower number of steps was German mathematician Volker Strassen. In 1969, he introduced an algorithm that reduced the number of multiplications needed for 2x2 matrices from the conventional 8 steps to only 7, at the cost of more additions, right? There's always the trade-off. More recently, Alpha Tensor has discovered a new, more efficient algorithm or algorithms for specifying small matrix sizes using 47 multiplications. So back to the question of, if it can discover new ideas, but it's not capable of reasoning, then what is reasoning? And by new ideas, we talk about stemming from existing but not previously tried or connecting the dots before. Would a human, like, to me, my bar, of like intelligence and AI, or you call it super intelligence, is like, would a human ever have come up with it? Right? Like, if Alpha Tensor was able to develop this more efficient algorithm did it come up with it because it was able to do something that humans cannot do and will not be able to do? Or was it a matter of time until a human gets there? Like that to me is like the essence of all of this, right? Like, is AI just an acceleration along the same vector of human intelligence? Or is it an entirely humans think? Because that to me like becomes interesting, because if it's orthogonal in some ways, right? If it's a little bit deviated from like the origin of the human reasoning vector, well, that's very cool, right? That's very cool, because it's going to do something that we could never do. But if it's just accelerating what we are going to do, still super useful, but in some ways less interesting, right? Like to me, that's less interesting, slightly less interesting. Just an accelerant. Maybe it is. Yeah, that's what I want to know. I want an answer from somebody. How did AlphaGo come up with move 37? And if no human can do, how does it come up with? I'm not a Go expert either, but like, how does it come up with a move within? I don't. I'm sure there's probably millions of probabilities of moves, right? That you could potentially make. It's always interesting to me. The analogy here is like when you watch, if you ever watch like Magnus Carlsen, right? Some really high level chess player, and you watch them play somebody who's not very experienced. Um, they'll say things like, "Oh, that's not a move that a professional would have made," because by the time you become a professional, you have these kind of like lanes, right, that you like generally follow. But as a beginner, you kind of just do random shit. There's so much more like entropy in your thought process because you don't know all the lanes, right? You don't know how the game might play out. So you just do random things. And so I remember watching a video one day of Magnus Carlsen who was like, he's like, "Oh, that's a really interesting move. I would have never made that." He's like, "It's not a bad move, but it's interesting. But the reason he made it was because he just doesn't know as much chess as I do." I find that, or have we sort of explored like the latent space of all possible moves, and we're smarter, and it made a move that we wouldn't guess because in some ways it was kind of a beginner, or is it the opposite? I don't know. People that don't learn language are typically stunted in education. Language defines our perception. It definitely does, right? I mean, it definitely does. The way that you're able to, like, if you put like the sort of like the neurological part of it aside, which is like, what you say influences how you think and how you feel. Um, Language is it's obviously how we communicate, but in some ways, like it's the great filter. Like if you can't describe it, then you can't. It's not useful. No human can store the entire internet and recall that during test time. That's true. That's. I guess in that along that angle, like, but dumber in some ways, as to retain important relationships and consensual themes. So this is the little the diagram of this contextual, learnable, data independent weights. Okay, so this was the example I was talking about. So it currently remembers and what the new input is telling it. Animal word, the gradient or the surprise is high surprise. If the model's memory state is summarized the unexpected event, the gradient or the surprise will be very high. This signals that the new input is important or anomalous, and it must be prioritized for permanent storage in the long-term memory module. Titan refines this mechanism by incorporating two critical elements. The momentum. This ensures relevant subsequent information is also kept to manage the finite capacity of the memory when dealing with extremely forgetting gate, allowing the model to discard information that is no. Hi. Memory is not intelligence, but it has to be like it's a building block, right? I mean, it has to be. It's intelligence, right? Like you can't argue. That's what I would think, at least. Sequence modeling. Every major breakthrough in sequence modeling for Mon Transform associative memory module. What makes me it's these different methods of solving the same problem, efficiently combining new information with old memories without letting concepts be forgotten. So it has a memory architecture, the structure that stores information, a vector, matrix, or deep multi-layer perceptron, like in Titans. An attentional bias, the internal learning objective the model optimizes that determines what it prioritizes. So I wonder, is this learned? The internal learning objective, is this just like an objective gate, the memory regularizer, as specific forms of regularization that balance new learning, retaining past knowledge. And then the memory algorithm, which is used to update the memory itself. Texture here, let's just say this is a matrix. Yeah, I don't want to like just pause it. Come on. There we go. So input comes in, goes into the memory, so it gets encoded into the weight matrix here. Attentional bias, the memory internal objective. So this is the objective function. The gate to retain the past state of the memory, and then does gradient descent, the algorithm that learns the mapping. All right, should we get into some actual results? Studies was in my fucking eye. Ablation studies clearly show the depth of the memory architecture is crucial. When comparing long-term memory modules of the same size but different depths, modules with deeper memories consistently achieve lower perplexity and language modeling. So what are we showing here? So here we have, are these, I don't know what these are. These models, I assume. Mamba, I know is a model. And then, so these must be model types, right? So the sequence length, which is also the size of the context window at 360 million parameters, and then the perplexity. Effectively, what are we looking at? So we're saying with modules with deeper memories consistently achieve lower perplexity and language modeling. It's pretty interesting with 360 million parameters at the 8,000 sequence length. It's much lower on the perplexity. Oh, see, okay, crime. You can't have two fucking charts next to each other with different y-axes. Like, what is the first thing anybody's going to do? You're going to look at both charts. That's trash. This is chart crime. Report it. Report it. Extremely long context recall. The most significant advantage of the new architecture is their ability to handle extremely long context, as highlighted in the Babylon benchmark, a task requiring reasoning across facts distributed in extremely long documents. Scale effectively, the context window size is larger than 2 million tokens. That's interesting. So here we have the accuracy, and then this is the sequence length and the context window length. So this is 10 to the 3, so this would be what, 10,000 tokens, 100,000 tokens. Am I reading that right? Yeah, 100,000 tokens. This is 1 million tokens. This is 10 million tokens. And this is 100 million tokens. That's kind of crazy though. Even, I mean, if you look at some of these other ones, right? Like look at GPT-4. It just doesn't even get past the million tokens. RMTFT, that's interesting. This does kind of scale, but it's still pretty inaccurate. And then Titans kind of tops out here, like what is that, 75% roughly accuracy at the 100 million token level? Is that right? That's insane. No, this would be 10 million tokens. Sorry, this is 10 million tokens. You know, it's interesting to compare this against like continual learning, right? Like I don't think those things are like mutually exclusive, but it's just interesting to think about that. Like if you look at what, you know, Ilya, Safe Superintelligence, and those guys are doing, there was a bunch of reports recently because like NeurIPS, the conference just happened. I think it was last week in San Francisco. And I guess everybody was talking about how like continual learning was the thing that was the topic. And I want to learn. I want to know more about what they mean by continual learning. Like I have my own idea, and I've read, I think two papers. I will say I summarized 2 papers on it, but it still seems very like it's very early, right? Because nobody's really built it yet. I think people are still trying to figure out generally like what does it mean to do continual learning? Because on one hand, if you look at somebody like Cursor, right? I mean, Cursor publishes based on, they released a blog post about this. I think it was like Cursor new model every 2 hours. They talked about, here we go. Improving Cursor tab with online reinforcement learning. This is September. So our tab model runs on every user action, handling over 400 million requests per day. That's kind of wild. And then they talk about a little later on. Where is it? Where's the 1.5 to 2 hours? 2 hours. Here we go. Currently takes us 1.5 to 2 hours to roll out a checkpoint and collect data for the next step. So they're effectively rolling out a new checkpoint, right? A new model. That's what a checkpoint is, a checkpoint in the training process, every 2 hours. Like, is that, it's not continual learning in the sense, like there is a little bit of a lag. But I mean, you could make the argument that, like, do humans continually learn? Like, we sleep, right? We sleep for 8 hours, 7 hours, 6 hours, 9 hours, whatever it is. Like, is that just analogous to a model having to be trained, right? Retrained? Is our brain retrained during those 8 hours that we're sleeping? And there's some papers on this. There was a good paper I read maybe a few months ago about this. And that was the point, effectively, was like, humans are similar in that sense where, like, you learn stuff through the day, you go to sleep at night, we update the weights while we sleep. Exactly. And so, like, it's interesting to think of, like, why are models held to a different standard, right? I mean, what Cursor is saying here is effectively like, hey, the model's sleeping 2 hours, it's updating its weights and then being sent out again, which is pretty insane. The godfather of RL gave a talk about future AI at my company today. Richard Sutton? Or who? Is it Richie? Is it Richie boy? Richard Sutton is a UMass guy. It's my alma mater. It's my undergrad. Richard Sutton, UMass. Hey. Honestly, bro, he's fucking just dripped out in this shirt right here. Look at him. And that Dwarkesh pod. That was an interesting pod. I don't know if anybody listened to that, but I thought that was pretty interesting. Just the debate they had back and forth, right? The idea of, like, do you treat intelligence within AI as like a humanistic thing or not? Highly recommend if you haven't seen it. But yeah, shout out to Richie Sutton, UMass alum. It's funny, like, UMass, my undergrad, like, has one of the best AI grad programs, but nobody really knows about it. Same with computer vision. It's also a very good computer vision program. Humans can continue to increase intelligence. In what way? I mean, there's a classic quote, right? That it's like, oh, like, humans, use 2% of their brain or whatever. Like, it's not true. Like, I think we all know that at this point. All right, bro, let's go. Gotta put us on the map a little bit, I didn't know that Codex was open source, so I'm, like, really curious now just to, like, read through it a little bit. See what the boys have been up to. No, they're definitely not the same. But, depending on the school of thought that you subscribe to, I think some people would say that increasing form of intelligence. The Flynn effect describes a long-term substantial rise in average IQ test scores across generations, suggesting a shift in cognitive skills towards abstract reasoning rather than just innate intelligence. I remember, I had a question about this a while back. I kind of now call it, 22, maybe pre-COVID. Were people smarter then than in the 1900s? Much information in the 1900s as there is, like, quantum physics or just physics in the 1900s. Though, like, that area, to go from, like, I'm a physics student, of physics, right? In some, if you look back at the average age of all these people who made these 27, 28. You could get to, did they work harder? Like physics, like math, right? Like biology, any of these, right? Really, how long does it take, sort of, like, discovery to be just as smart? Tuition, like, I don't, I have no data behind it. Why, typically men, could make scientific takes longer. Pattern. Einstein published his miracle paper. 26, nothing good. Dirac, there's a PhD, and then postdoc down his neck. Generally speaking, right? But like, I would feel like today, science is more collaborative. Big problems require huge. Lower hanging fruit is gone. The easy discovery are advanced equipment, large data sets, and expensive technology. Youthful innovation gone. So are you go be a potato farmer? Open source and independent innovation. Intelligent scaffolds are passed through genetics and natural selection and built and layered, for sure. I guess my point was more like there's just at some point there is like the density to be able to contribute on the frontier, but into these things. That's what I would expect. That would make sense to me. The Flynn effect describes a long-term substantial rise in average IQ test scores across generations, suggesting a shift in cognitive skills towards abstract reasoning rather than innate intelligence. While the effect showed increases above the reversal, we're literally getting dumber. Insights still rise. Explanations for the original rise include better nutrition, more schooling, and increased environmental complexity. I mean, that's like kind of fascinating, right? The reverse Flynn effect. Like, did we top out, right? Like, was that it? Did humans reach their final form? I don't know. Maybe in some ways, right? A 2023 study found dropping scores in verbal, matrix, and number and letter reasoning, but a rise in 3D rotation. Like, that's fascinating to me. Our brains haven't kept up with the pace of innovation. That's true. I mean, there's a lot of work done in Doug, I see you. There's a lot of work done in especially psychology around this, like around mental health, right? It's like a big reason, at least some researchers think, of the rise of things like anxiety and depression, is that your body just naturally hasn't. Your brain and your body haven't evolved to like the surrounding world, right? Your brain is still like, yo, there's a lion in the grass. I'm about to get fucking eaten. I need to be anxious, but like there are no lions in the grass, right? Because we live in San Francisco. Maybe there are some lions in the grass here. I don't know, maybe some fucking homeless people that are in the grass.
Hey.
But like,
Don't say shit like that. Come on.
You know what I mean? There's like it's changed. It's changed too fast, and we haven't kept up. And so we're this like, I don't even know the word. I'm trying to think of the right word for it. Like we're this just like alien being in some ways in an alien world. That was it. That's all I had to cover. Those were. What's the holiday schedule looking like? Great question. All right, so here's the plan. I think next week will be normal. We'll continue to, we'll do our stream. I don't know what the week is after that. Is that Christmas week? Maybe we'll do like a Christmas special. Then we'll keep going. We'll get right back to it. That's gonna be the plan. But I think I'm gonna hop off. I'm gonna grab some dinner. Dude, my cat, I swear to God, this fucking thing.
What are you doing?
She is insane. Only way to speed up our own intelligence is through gene editing. Bro, I can go down the rabbit hole of gene editing. But I need to eat. That's the problem. Or hit singularity and merge with AI. I'm going to leave you on this. Everybody put their tinfoil hat on, right? Put it on. And we're going to talk about, in the last 30 seconds, we're going to talk about, ready? The fucking aliens. Sky aliens. These guys. That's it. That's where we're going. We're all going to be just petrified little fucking mummies like these guys. It's the only thing that we have left. Now, I'm pretty optimistic. Saw a lot of things that night. All right, y'all. It's been fun. It's been real, like always. Thanks for joining. This has been fun. We'll do this again next week.